In the previous recording, part 1 of this topic, we talked about object state and valid and invalid state of object. Here I will focus on safe empty state or safe non-empty state of an object. These are subcategories of valid state that I mentioned in part 1 recording. Let's understand it better through this code. In this code we have a student class with a name and ID attribute, set function to receive ID and name and set into the dynamic memory name and ID in ID to display the data and to deallocate the memory. Let me create an object and let me have a function to display the object's content and then finally deallocate the memory. So to understand what is safe empty state and safe non-empty state, first you need to determine what are the values of the data members of the object which are safe. Many times safe range of the values is subjective or context driven. In some applications ID values from in the range 1001 to 9999 can be acceptable as a safe values. In other application the values in the range 221001 to 229999 9999 would be acceptable as safe values. Here in this case we consider null PTR and address of dynamic as the safe values if the name gets either null PTR or the address of dynamic memory space for character data storage, we consider that as a safe values. In the case of ID, we consider 0 and positive whole numbers up to 9999 as a safe values. With this assumption, here obviously as I discussed in the previous recording, we don't have initialized the members of this object, therefore this is in an invalid state. But if I set the following data to it, 0 for the ID, null PTR. In this case this is a valid state because the data that is set to this attributes belong to the valid range of the data. Therefore this is a valid state, but since the data is we cannot use this data for as a valid data of the valid student. In that case we call this as a safe empty state because the data is empty, the object is empty, but it is in a safe state. So this is in safe empty state, the state when the object is initialized to a valid state but its attributes and variables contain data that is considered empty or data that is representative of default condition. And this is actually useful to prevent undefined behavior, because if you use this data in as a these values as a data of the student, then there could be undefined behavior of the code many times, right? For example, if I display the data with this code, then I will be in trouble. Let me show you. Switching to the terminal and compilation and linking, I think there is a typo issue. Go back to the code, display, So now we have a problem because it is not writing anything in the name. That is because it is null PTR, it is pointing to null PTR. So null PTR, I mean, doesn't have anything, so it doesn't have anything right. Many cases it can lead to runtime error, runtime problem. So this is in this state, and the way of to avoid this is that you can have a function which actually returns whether this is in the valid state or not. It will return true when it is in a valid state and false when it is not in a valid state. So it will return if name is null PTR I think we can use if ID is greater than or equal to 0, return true. Otherwise return false. Let's assume that this is the function which returns the valid state, and also we can have function is empty, whether this is in empty state or not. In this case it will return if name is null PTR or ID equals to 0. True, otherwise return false. So we have these two functions, and we can make use of these two functions to determine whether we want to execute this function that can cause problem or not, particularly this display function. So if st is valid and st is empty, it is not empty, so we need to put this not operator, then you actually display, otherwise you don't do anything. Similarly, you can set this to a valid data 101 and the action, and you can do same thing. If it is valid, you display. If it is not non-empty, you display, otherwise just ignore it. You can set 0 value, and again you do the same thing, or you set null PTR. So in this multiple displays, I want to see. I expect that this should be displayed. Others should not. This display for, execution should not be run. So I want to switch to the terminal and show you what actually happens here. Compilation and linking is not. Oh, I think there was a typo in the name of the object, so it should be st. So we have executed only one display function was invoked. In other cases, we actually prevented invocation. So because of this condition, this if conditional execution, option we actually avoid it. In this case, when in this case this is this I mean this condition will be false. This is valid, but this in this case it is not. I mean this is empty, so this will be false. That will prevent it from execution. In this case, both are. This is valid and it's not empty, so we use it. In this case, this is valid, but it's empty, so this is not executed. And here also this is also empty because we have because of null PTR, so this is not executed. So uh, I mean displaying the data is actually using the data. So you want to use data when it is valid, and if you don't want to use when it's not valid. You want to use the data when it is empty, you don't want to use when not empty. But this is empty function is useful to determine whether the object can be used or not. So now what else I know I want to talk. Right, so this is a safe empty state. In this case it is going to be safe non-empty state. This is safe but non-empty state. And finally I want to talk about the initial state. So initial state is the state in which the object remains initially when it is created. It can be invalid state like this. If we for this class it is always going to be invalid state in the beginning, but there could be some functions that can actually initialize to some values. In that case it could be in a valid state, it could be in a valid uh, safe empty state, it could be in a safe non-empty state depending on how object is created. But it is always advised um, to set the object in a valid state, either safe empty or safe non-empty state when it is created, and that is carried out by using constructor. You need to have something called constructor in the class that will ensure that it is set in some safe state when you create an object. I will talk about constructor in one of the future recordings. That is it for this topic. Thank you for watching.